The whole tone changed. She said to me, I'll never forget these words. Her line was, "I don't know."
Larry, how did you find Carnivore?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. It's great to be on your show. I've watched many episodes and enjoyed many stories, and I guess I have one more story to tell. Um, excuse me. I just turned 68 years of age last week, and I have all my life, I think I've enjoyed pretty good health. I can I cannot remember ever being sick enough to be in bed in my life. Probably once or twice, but hardly ever. And I've always had really good health. And I think I grew up with a bit of a what I'd call a Doris Day view of health. You know, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see, and you're eventually going to get something, and you've got no control over it, no say over it. So just cop it on the chin when it comes, and accept it as your fate, as everybody else does in their life. It's just part of getting older, and that was my approach, I think, to health. And I had a bit of a wake up call, I guess, about 18 months ago. I was going to see my doctor. I was going once a year to the doctor for the annual checkup. And at this checkup, the doctor ordered a set of blood tests and also a CT scan of my chest. And I went back in for my follow up appointment, and I got a bit of a shock because the doctor said to me, there's four issues here. She said, "You've got very high blood pressure." I think at the time it was about 179 over 90. And she said, "You've also got she called it non-alcoholic fatty liver disease." I had no idea what that was. And she said, "You're insulin resistant." Now, I'd never heard of that. I'd heard of insulin, but never heard that term before. And finally, she said to me, "And you're pre-diabetic." Now, that scared the life out of me because I thought, I've known people with diabetes, and I thought, I don't want to get diabetes. So it was a bit of a wake up call. And as the doctor outlined these four things, there seemed to be one of those four that she was most concerned about. And you can guess which one it was. It was the blood pressure, because they've got a pill for that. And she said, "Yeah, your blood pressure is very high." So she said, "What I'm going to do is start you on a blood pressure tablet, and that should fix your blood pressure up, but just keep an eye on it, and come back in 3 months." So I dutifully went to the pharmacy and got my prescription filled, and got my blood pressure tablet, first medication I'd been on for as long as I could remember. And you see, I had this view of doctors, again, a view that was entrenched through all my growing up years, that the doctor is a godlike figure, Gandalf the Grey. And you just, they're very wise, and they know what they're talking about, and they're experts at what they do. So simply do what they tell you to do. So I did what I was told. I went and got the blood pressure tablet and started taking it, and I got myself a blood pressure monitor. And I soon realized, as I was taking my blood pressure each day and these tablets, nothing was happening. The blood pressure was still very high, and I was a bit concerned. So I made an appointment, went back to see the doctor, and she said, "No trouble." She said, "We'll give you a stronger dose." So she doubled the dose of the tablet. And so I went back and took the higher dosage. But again, nothing happened. There was no real change to my blood pressure. So I went back a third time, and this time she said, "Oh, look, sometimes people need two tablets." And so she said, "I'll give you two different medications, and this should have quite a dramatic result." But it didn't. My blood pressure stayed high. Now, I was getting a bit concerned at this point. I was doing everything the doctor said, but nothing was happening. And I reflect back now, and I think, if I only ever did what the doctor told me, nothing would have changed to this day. That's not putting the doctor down. I think doctors are good people and they work hard and they're very busy. But unless I had taken some initiative and changed my attitude and said, look, the person responsible for my health is me, and I've got to do something about this, nothing would have changed. So I was a bit concerned, and I think the question that was nagging me most was one the doctor had never talked about, and that is the why. Why have I got high blood pressure? Why am I insulin resistant, pre-diabetic, and why have I got a fatty liver? Because that to me was the more fundamental question. Rather than just treating a presenting system, of wanting to know why this came about. So I did. I started to get curious, and I started to watch YouTube channels, and I was searching for everything I could find on blood pressure and insulin resistance and so forth. And then I started reading books. And I've never been a reader in my life, but I started reading books, and I think in the last 3 months I've read 20 books. All on the subject of health and diabetes and diet and so forth. And I was fascinated. I really was. I never did any science at high school. I was a high school dropout. And so all of this was very new to me. And I was quite fascinated. I could easily get lost in the science, but I would gravitate to the books that I could at least understand what they were saying, even if I had to take notes. But through the YouTube, listening to people on YouTube, and of course all the people that you would have heard of Dr. Chafee and the Cowboy Ken Berry and Sean Baker and all of these guys. They all seem to be saying the same thing. And the message came through loud and clear that all of this metabolic health issues can be reversed by diet and lifestyle. Now, that was quite a revelation to me, because I'd always been a little bit conscious that I was overweight, never morbidly obese, but I guess what I would consider to be about 15 kilos overweight. And at times in the past, I had tried diets like everybody, going back throughout the history of life. I did things like I remember the Scarsdale diet, Dukan diet, which was all meat for 2 weeks. I did the Jenny Craig diet, where you buy the little boxes of food. The paleo diet was another one we were on for a bit. And you know what I found with all of these diets is that they all worked. That every single one of them, they had variations, but I always lost weight. And I look back now and I think, the one thing that they had in common is that they cut out sugar, they cut out processed foods, and they cut out at least the heavier carbs. And I look back now, I think that's why they worked. But where they went wrong is that you were still hungry and you're on that diet, but you are starving. And you're never going to win that fight. The amount of time you hold out is determined by your willpower. But I would always cave in, and of course the weight would come straight back, usually a bit worse than what it was before. So I was intrigued by this, and it's interesting. I was talking to the doctor in that initial consultation, and I said, she said, I've given you the blood pressure tablets. But I was a little bit concerned about the other 3 things that she didn't seem to mention any follow-up for at all. And I said, is there anything that we can do about the liver and the pre-diabetes and the insulin resistance? And she paused a bit and she said, I guess you could lose some weight. That might help. And I said to her, well, have you got any advice for me on how I should go about losing weight? And it's interesting, Dave, that the whole tone changed. She said to me, I'll never forget these words. Her line was, I don't know. What have you tried before? And then she said, I hear low carb is meant to be good. You see, 1 minute she's talking like a doctor, very authoritative, very clear, very precise. But we'd gotten onto nutrition and diet, and suddenly she was talking like the next door neighbor over the fence. you see, doctors sadly are not trained in nutrition in their medical course, and I guess it's the same in other countries, but here in Australia, I've been asking every doctor I meet, what training did you get in nutrition? And the answer is always basically none, 2 or 3 lectures at best. And yet, you know, um, diet is such a fundamental part of health. And I think, why? To me, that was mind boggling. But anyway, I decided I would have to do something about this. And of course, in looking at the YouTube videos, reading the books, I kept coming across what they called the carnivore diet. And I looked at it, and I had some friends that had started it, and they were pretty excited. And my first reaction, like everybody you talk to on here, my first reaction was, "Oh no, you could not do that. I mean, that is just over the top. That is extreme. Maybe 2 days I'd last. It's just bizarre." And yet, I began to hear people's stories and watching your channel, of course, and all of the interviews, and to hear story after story after story of people saying, I started, this is what I thought, but these are the results. I mean, that's pretty impacting. Then you get people like, of course, Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson, who have enormous influence, and their stories are, bordering on miraculous. So I got to the point where I thought, I've got to try this. I've got to give it a go. So I thought, maybe I'll do it for 3 months that way, and I'll tell people. I'll tell my wife and I'll tell my family, I'm just trying this for 3 months. It's just an experiment, so that if the wheels fall off, I've got a legitimate out and saying I tried it. So I started, and we started with great gusto. My wife. I told her what I was doing, and she was very pleased. I think she was just happy that I was finally doing something about my health. And so she was very supportive. But, she got us out in the kitchen, and she said, right, we're going to do some stuff here. And she opened the pantry and opened the fridge, and she got everything out and looked at the list of ingredients. And if it had the word sugar or any of the synonyms for sugar, she put it on the bench. And for some of those, we needed a magnifying glass to see. But, Dave, we filled the bench up from one end to the other. I should have got a photo of it. But all of this stuff, everything's got sugar in it. And so we piled all this stuff into garbage bags and threw it out in the rubbish and said, right, now we can start. And then, of course, we had an empty cupboard, and we had an empty fridge, and we had more space than what we'd ever had before. And so then we went shopping for meat. So I guess that's how I started Carnivore.
Wow. So, sorry, how long ago was this?
3 months.
3 months now. And what have you noticed in 3 months? Like those 4 conditions, has anything changed?
Yeah, look, I went back to the doctor just a couple of weeks ago, and did another set of blood tests, and every single marker had improved on my blood tests. And they talk about metabolic health and the 5 markers, and Philip Avardi has written a lot about this, but I noticed that it's on a lot of websites, so it's pretty standard, the 5 markers of metabolic health. Now, I failed 4 out of 5 3 months ago. The only one I marginally passed was HDL, and it was by a fraction of a percent that I passed on that. But when I come back after 3 months, every single one, I had 5 ticks. And I'm told, Philip Avardia says that there's only 16% of adults that can tick all 5. So I was pretty thrilled. And I came, I should say, going back to the blood pressure, which was a big concern, 12 months I took tablets, and I started Carnivore, and Dave, within 2 weeks, my blood pressure was starting to fall dramatically. And I think within a month, I was right down to about 110 over 80. And it was a dramatic drop. And so, I didn't want to go off the tablets without talking to the doctor, which I think is wise. But she had said to me that if your blood pressure gets down around 110, you can go off the tablets. So I thought, okay, I've got authority to do that. So I went off the tablets, and to this day, I take my blood pressure every morning or a couple of times a day, and it has remained at that low level. And I'm not taking any tablets at all, and I think that's great. In terms of weight, I lost about 14 kilos, or what's that? 33 pounds, is it?
Yeah, something about
Yeah,
33 pounds.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Sorry to all the folks in America, but you being an Aussie and using Aussie figures. So yeah, my waist measurement went down. I think was I've got the figures here somewhere. I was 113 centimeters 3 months ago, and now it's 96 centimeters. So that's 2 gene sizes, and I'm just thinking I need to go down another gene size. So it's a bit of a pain, but it's a good problem to have, isn't it? When you start seeing those things. My blood glucose level went from 10.5 down to 5.3 on the Australian system, or down to 5.3, somewhere around 100, I think, on the American scale. So it was about 200. That was a dramatic change. My triglycerides fell from 2.3 to 0.9, so dropped more than half. And they do that thing where they do the comparison between the triglycerides and the HDL, and I come out on below the 1.5 on that. So I was pretty happy. The one thing that the doctor looked at these blood results, and she was just going down the list on her computer, and she said, "Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Oh, that's okay." And I'm thinking, a bit more enthusiasm here, because this is really good. The one thing she commented on, though, she said, "Oh, your LDL is a little bit high," and I said, "How high?" And she said, "Oh, less than 1 point." But she said, "I'm thinking we should give you a tablet, a statin for that." And I said to her, I'd never said this to a doctor in my life. I said, "No, thank you. I want to keep doing what I'm doing and see what happens." And she was trying to make a point. So she put up on her screen a test that shows your percentage of likelihood to have a heart attack. And it was on a scale of 10. She had to put in all the stats and, my weight and age and so forth. And it had three groups on the screen. There was a low danger group, there was a mid group, and there was a high group. Now, when she did this test, I was bang in the middle. And then she said, "Now, I want to show you the difference it would make if we could get your LDL down." And so she put it all in again, but altered my LDL down, and I was 0.1 different. And she looked at it and she said, "Oh," she said, that's not much different, is it?" And I said, "No, it's not." So I'm not taking your statin. So anyway, yeah, I've been pretty pleased with the results. I feel a lot better. Other things too that I could mention. I had plantar fasciitis in one of my feet, and I'd had that for about 2 years, and it was quite debilitating. I'd particularly in the mornings, I'd be hobbling around. I had trouble walking, and I'd been doing exercises and so forth for that, but nothing got better. And when I started Carnivore, I noticed one day, I thought, my feet don't hurt. And last week I walked 10 kilometers one day. There was no way known I could walk 10 kilometers prior. So that, I can't say it's completely gone, but I'd say it's about 95% gone. I had sinus problem all my life, and for 35 years I would use nose sprays when I went to bed so I could breathe through my nose and sleep. I'm not using nose sprays anymore, and I'm breathing perfectly. What else? I've always had pain in my fingers, particularly in the mornings, like an arthritic pain. You'll see these joints are a bit swollen, and they'd be very sore in the morning, and I'd get up and I'd be working them, trying to get them going, and that pain is gone. Now that I see the swelling is still there to some extent. I think that's improved too, but the pain is gone. That's huge, because that was a quite a sharp pain every morning. That you could go on. That I'm sleeping better. I'm not waking up through the night. I used to average 6 hours a night. Now I'm sleeping 8 hours a night and not waking up at night. So that has improved. So yeah, so many things get better.
So that's awesome. And yeah, it's a shame the doctor was not more enthusiastic about so much change. Did you tell her how you're eating?
Yes, I did. Yes,
What was her reaction?
I was very nervous about using the word carnivore, because I didn't know how she would react. So I tried to be diplomatic. She said to me, "What are you eating?" And I said, "Well, I'm eating pretty much a very low carb, high protein, high fat diet." I thought she can work it out, what I'm eating. And she said, "Well, look, it's she did." She was very affirming and said, "Look, you've done a really great job, and whatever you're doing, keep going." So I thought, well, I've got my doctor's permission to continue on carnivore. But Dave, there's such a connection between diet and health. Like, I listen to all the people you interview every day, and what are they all saying? They all saying, "I started this, I lost weight, but then all these things got better." Now, I've thought a lot about this in this last week. If you change the way that you eat, and a lot of things get better, even things that have been there for decades and sometimes quite serious issues, if they suddenly get better, then the only conclusion that you can come to is that those conditions were caused by diet. Now, that to me was like a real wake up moment. That what we eat matters, and it matters a lot. And you see people, like you, I go down to the shopping centres, and you walk through the food courts, and you see these hundreds of tables, and you see people, and they're eating hamburgers and chips, and they're drinking Pepsi and Coke and eating cakes, and they're, most of them are overweight, and you look at their faces and they look just withdrawn, and I just think, what's happening here? And we are immersed in it. Our whole culture is about food, and this is why Carnival, I think, is so radical, because it confronts not just our diet, but it confronts the culture. It's a very it's a very significant lifestyle change.
Yeah. So the worst of that, when you're walking through the food court and people are eating all the junk, the worst thing about that is the majority of them probably think they're doing the right thing in some way. It's like, okay, well, I'm balancing this with a Diet Coke, or this hasn't got any cholesterol in it, or this
Yeah,
is fat free, or something like
yeah,
that, and so they
yeah,
think they're doing the right thing in some way.
yeah, yeah. I think there is you see, the movie How to Train Your Dragon, and the kid in that, he goes to the dragons, and he comes out with this classic line: "Everything we know about you guys is wrong." And I think everything we know about food and nutrition and is wrong, and it's been wrong for a long time. And Dr. Ken Berry, in his book Lies Your Doctor Tells You, he's got a chapter there called The Echo of the Lie, and he talks about how something is believed so innately for generations, and people just accept it, and you can present all sorts of evidence to contradict it, but people are so thoroughly entrenched in that way of thinking, and so we still have this persistence of you got to eat low fat and high carb, and it just doesn't work anymore. I don't think it ever worked. So it's a change in your belief system, and that takes time to sort of penetrate the mind.
Right. So how has your wife been with this? She was very supportive, but has she decided to, after seeing your results, has she taken it on?
Yeah, look, she's always been a lot healthier than me. Even back, before carnivore, like she would not eat a lot of sugary stuff, and she's always eaten very well. We've been married for like 43 years. She's the same weight she was when she got married. That's never changed. She can wear clothes for 10 years because her weight never changes. And so she was very supportive, and I think she was inwardly, I think she was a little bit worried about me and about what I would eat, and because I was eating sort of 6 meals a day, like most people. But yeah, she decided that she would follow me. Now I was a bit concerned because I didn't want her to just sort of blindly follow me. I wanted her to do what was right for her, but she started into the carnivore and had a few problems in the early weeks, like most people, and I did also. But she persevered with it. Now she occasionally she'll when we're having a second meal, she will do herself a bit of broccoli or a bit of cauliflower with it, but pretty much the same as what I eat. So yeah, she's been doing that and very supportive and very encouraging.
Oh, that's awesome. So when it comes to people around you, has anyone seen you eating this way and kind of gone, what is this crazy thing you're doing?
Yeah, look, I think this is one of the um, it's a fairly major issue for a lot of people because, when you're eating the rubbish, nobody gives a hoot, it's just normal. But the day that you start to say, I'm going to be responsible for my health and change what you eat, suddenly everybody's very concerned about you. And, I know on my, I've been making YouTube movies about my progress so far, and just had a few people say, talk about their great fear of what people will think, and it's pretty significant. Now, I found I didn't tell anybody right near the start. I thought, well, I haven't got any runs on the board yet, and nobody will notice. I'll just keep it quiet until people start commenting, and eventually, people will start commenting. They'll say, "Oh, you've lost weight," or "You're looking a lot better," and I think that is the time to say something to them. But look, carnivore will make you a social outcast. It plays havoc with your social life, and it plays havoc with the opinion of others. But um, for a lot of my life, I lived trying to please people. I was a pastor of a church for many years, and I learned through all those years that the way to be liked is to give people what they want, to do what they want. Trouble was they all want different things, and it nearly does your head in. And of course, people are concerned about it, but ultimately, you can't live your life directed by what other people think, or you'll finish up, um, having a nervous breakdown. You've got to say, look, this is my life, my health, and I've got to do something about it, and help you understand as much as I can. But ultimately, this is what I'm doing. But this is on carnivore. It's pretty confronting for a lot of people. And I think it's something we need to talk more about. Some of these obstacles that people are going to encounter. Being a social outcast, people thinking you're crazy. The vegan debate and the militant vegans that you'll come across accusing you of being a murderer, a torturer. I live on a farm. We've got cows out here, and I look at them. They're all out in the paddock eating grass, and I'm thinking, it doesn't sort of sit right. And a murderer. So all of these issues you will encounter because it's carnivore is not just a diet; it's a whole lifestyle, and it's a radically different lifestyle to what you lived before, and big changes happen, and yeah, so you need to be ready for that as much as you can be.
So at this stage, for you, is this the way going forward? There's no going back?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Dave. I said I'd do it for 3 months. My results are good, and now look, I've just found this is the thing is with meat is it's so satisfying. When I thought it was extreme, now I think it's normal. And if I do eat anything, if I did have a mouthful of vegetables or something now, or even chicken or fish, or um, I eat that, and I feel I haven't eaten anything. There's no sort of substance to it. And I'm still hungry, so I want some more. But with meat, you're very satisfied, and you're never hungry. I think that's the key to carnivore success, because on all other diets, you're going to get hungry. Carnivore, you're never hungry. Like yesterday, we we had some visitors coming around, and prior to that, I was watching the football. And when the football finished, I said to my wife, "Oh, I said we got an hour to fill in. Let's go for a walk." She said, "What about our meal?" I had totally forgotten that we had not eaten that day, and I said, "Oh, okay," but it just wasn't on my radar. Now that would have been unheard of before. I'd be highly focused on food.
So that brings up the question: how many times are you eating during the day?
Yeah, look, it's um, prior to carnivore, I was eating 6 times a day or more. And I found very quickly on carnivore that I wasn't hungry. So 3 meals became two. Now, our usual pattern at the moment is 2 meals, but I often think, I could easily go 1 meal a day. That's uncanny for me, but it would be easy to do. So we just eat, at the moment, we have 2 meals. We never know what to call them, so we call them meal one and meal two. Uh, but we have our first meal sort of mid morning, and that's just egg and bacon and a lamb chop with a bit of fat on it. So that doesn't change much. And then the other meal is just all meat. So whether it's a steak or they get a bit expensive every day, but you can have the cheaper cuts of meat that are just as delicious if you cook them right. And I love roast lamb, like just getting a bit of lamb out, putting it in the oven. Being an Aussie, nothing more beautiful and refreshing and delicious as roast lamb. So that's the other meal. So at the moment, 2 meals a day, but I there's a lot of days when I have only one meal, and I've had a couple of days where I've eaten no meals and not felt any hunger.
Nice. So, Larry, can you tell us about your YouTube channel, what you've got on there, and how we can find you?
Oh yeah, look, I've had a YouTube channel for years, putting up stuff. I do a lot of camping and canoeing and canoe camps and that sort of thing. So I had a channel for that, and I wanted to put up something on the carnivore diet. And my first thought was I'd just bang it on my other channel, and I just thought, no, that's not going to sit right. I'll start a new channel. So it was a week ago today I started the channel. I called it the Carnivore Pensioner, and it's I think I've got 6 videos up in my first week. I was quite blown away, Dave, because my camping videos might get 100 or 200 views at best. I put the first video up a week ago today, just telling my story pretty much as I've done here, and I looked the next morning, and there was 1,000 views and something like 57 subscribers on a channel with zero subscribers and zero views. And so that was, I guess, beginner's luck. It sort of inspired me. But look, YouTube is a bit of a trap, because you get caught up in that, how many views and how many subscribers and when can I make some money? You lose the whole purpose. It's about sharing stories. And I think what you're doing, Dave, is so significant, because if I get up here and share an opinion with you, this is what I think about such and such, you can disagree and you can argue with me and we finish up in a debate, but you tell your story. You can't argue with someone's story. and stories are powerful. And so I wanted to tell my story. And I think, I've got no interest in arguing with people. I've got no interest in debating the vegans, or, that who wants to fight? Who wants debates? What we want to do is just change one person at a time. And I think if I can tell my story and say just one person decides to give up sugar, like that's a win, isn't it? If one person says, I'm going to stop eating all the processed foods, and I think it's about changing lives. And already in the comments on my video channel, I've had people just giving a little paragraph of their story, and like the stories you hear, that they're inspiring and they're encouraging. So it's a brand new channel. Six videos up. I did 6 in the first week. I'll probably slow down to a couple a week, but they're it's something I enjoy doing. I enjoy the process and the research and the that. So yeah, it's brand new. It's a bit of an amateur production, but yeah, it's there.
That's awesome. So I'll link to your channel below. Larry, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been my 3-month ambition to come on your show, but I was waiting until I had a story before I came. But I kept hearing your encouragements for people to come. And yeah, so I just say to people listening, if you've got, just do it, share your story, because nothing is as powerful as your story, and it will influence somebody. And that's what it's all about. We've got to change the culture. We've got to change the landscape out there. We've got to change people's lives. These are real people. These are our parents, our brothers, our sisters. My brother just had a heart attack last week. My older brother's had a stroke. Both my parents had heart disease. We've got to change the narrative, and we can do it one story at a time. So keep doing what you're doing, Dave, and thanks for having me on the show today.